Hi everyone, welcome to J&B Talk F1 this week, Wednesday it's Thursday, I forgot about that, Thursday, October 8th, 2015. Thank you for joining us today here from Sydney. We're driven all the way up here for the Bathurst 1000 V8 supercar race over the weekend, but we've got other stuff to get through as well, including the Russian Grand Prix, that's as well on this weekend, and all the news, including Jenson Button confirmed to stay at McLaren next season, Manor confirmed to take on Mercedes power beyond next year. The new calendar as well, released by the World Motorsport Council last week. We'll go over that as well. And F1 for sale. Bernie dropped a bombshell on us yesterday, hinting that perhaps he might be looking to sell up. I'm joined by Baden Westerweller as always. How are you today? Well rested after the long drive?
Yeah, it must be said that arriving yesterday evening, very glad it was a sight for sore eyes. Had a few hard-earned beverages and a nice meal, really hit the spot, and raring to go from today. Really, it's a big couple of days in motorsport ahead.
Exactly, a lot happening this weekend. Apart from F1 and the V8 supercars, we've got MotoGP as well from Motegi in Japan, and of course the World Endurance Championship as well, also in Japan from the iconic Fuji circuit. But we're going to stick with F1 for the moment, and the Russian Grand Prix, round 15 of the 2015 championship. This is the second year we're going to the Sochi Autodrome, 53 laps across the 5.8 kilometre semi-street circuit. And the biggest change, I guess, this year is going to be the introduction of the super soft tyre with the soft tyre instead of the medium and soft compounds that they used last year, which really brought a boring race, didn't it? Everyone just one-stopped and things were processional. So hopefully we see some aggressive strategy this year.
Testament to that is the notion last year that I fell asleep halfway through the race, thanks in no small part to the marathon that I'd run that morning, but as it was, the race was just a procession from that first corner. Little bit of aggression from Rosberg, sending him to the back, and really it was never a contest from that point. So hopefully this change in compounds, which has indeed got a few people in the Mercedes camp quite concerned of a Singapore repeat. Maybe we'll see some kind of fight for the front this weekend.
Yeah, Niki Lauda, of course, expressing his concerns that a repeat of Singapore might be on. In Singapore, we recall how dramatically they were just completely off the pace on the super soft tyres and just couldn't get the car working. So perhaps we might see a repeat of that here, and that could open up that could open it up to, say, Ferrari again. Could Sebastian Vettel come back for a fourth victory this season, or even the winless Kimi Räikkönen? Is he on for a victory finally? We'll wait and see, but plenty of overtaking opportunities on this circuit. It is a semi-street circuit akin to that of the old Valencia track, and stop and start sort of corners, not a lot of fast flowing bits, except for the turn 4 left-hander, which reminds us a lot of Istanbul Park. The turn 8, was it over there?
Turn 8, I believe.
Yeah.
At Istanbul, definitely. That's the infamous dearly departed.
Yeah. So overtaking opportunities are plenty, and we're going to definitely see a lot of juicy battles in the midfield, of course. Look at Red Bull after their frustrating weekend in Japan. They should be back hunting for the points. Sadly, it'll only be points for the home race for Danny Kvyat, but we never know. If Mercedes have a horrible outing, Red Bull could be there to capitalise. But also Williams as well. Williams were mighty fast on this circuit last season. Who can forget that spectacular final flying lap by Valtteri Bottas in Q3, and that just little error that he made on the final corner. Yeah, final corner, he made an error, and critics say that it cost him pole position, so that would have been interesting to see. But yeah, Bottas finished third here last year behind the two Mercedes-Benz cars. So look out for Williams as well, when they really need a good result after being trumped by Ferrari on pretty much every occasion this season, except for maybe one or two where they did pick up podiums. But in terms of the main championship battle, this time last year, Lewis Hamilton had 17 points over Nico Rosberg. Going into this race, he has 48 points. So what do you think? We keep saying this over and over again, and it sort of, I'm sick of saying it, but is it a make or break weekend for Rosberg? And does he really need to get this tough guy attitude out there? Does he have to drop the sort of pacifist mentality he has, and just do something aggressive?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, Lewis Hamilton's already won this year's title for Rosberg. He really needs to just change the mindset and hope that from next season, with a bit of a clean slate there, he can really hit the ground running. But really, for all of the setbacks that Hamilton has had in a few of the races, I guess, since mid-season, Hungary and then Singapore, he's still emerged with an even more imperious lead of the standing. So I can't see how that's going to be whittled away over the next 5 races. Really, it's the ball's in his court. And as I've mentioned a few times, Ferrari is perhaps the biggest threat to Hamilton, and in that sense, maybe Rosberg is at risk of losing that second in the standings to Sebastian Vettel, who really has been matching Lewis really for the last 5 or 6 events.
Yeah, as you kept saying in previous editions as well, that Vettel has been, the equal to Hamilton coming out of the mid-season break. So, and let's not forget that those tracks that we've gone past already, from between Spa and Japan, those are tracks that Vettel had a lot of success at Red Bull as well. So, these sort of Tilke tracks, Vettel is very tuned into it, and perhaps, in his Ferrari car this year, he could come tuned to this circuit as well. So we'll wait and see what happens. But yeah, Rosberg's P2 is now under threat from Vettel, and we could see Vettel finish second in the Drivers' Championship. But yeah, we'll have more for you on Sunday, after qualifying, or even Saturday evening, depending on what happens. But yeah, our usual post-qualifying pre-race podcast will be there. We'll see what happens, and we'll give our predictions for the race. But other than that, yeah, we've got to see how Mercedes fare in practice first on those super soft tyres, or it could be on for a repeat of Singapore.
Yeah, well, it's not going to be something that the fans are going to bemoan too much if we do see the Silver Arrows back in the pack. But until further notice, really, you can look at it and think, oh, Mercedes will turn up and just hit the ground running and be streets ahead, and that wouldn't be a surprise equally to everyone else, just as normal service has been resumed.
Indeed, but yeah, we'll move it on now. And big news, a lot of big news actually came last week. If only it occurred on the day we did the podcast. But yeah, the first big bit of news was Jenson Button confirmed to stay at McLaren for 2016, and this comes after a big fray of doubt by the British press. The British press, Fleet Street, the Telegraph, and all that, they were pretty certain that Button would announce his retirement. Not certain, they were saying that it would happen ahead of the Japanese Grand Prix. Instead, a week after, Button and McLaren have come out and said, yeah, we're going to exercise the 2016 option. And even still, Button is putting an eye on 2017. He's excited about the new regulations, so perhaps he may stay on for another 2 years, contrary to what they said originally, the press.
Perhaps that was a bit of a caveat of Jenson recommitting for 2016, was that there would be still an option there for him to continue if he can continue to develop that Mercedes-Honda collaboration. He would be within his rights to expect it to be given that chance to lead the team into the new regulations from 2017. And as for the identity of his teammate, who knows, because really, even though Fernando Alonso does have that 3-year deal, there's been a lot of hype around him as well, especially in the wake of his outburst during that Japanese Grand Prix.
Well, during the announcement for Button's retention at McLaren, the omission of Fernando's name has sparked a lot of conjecture as to whether he's staying at Woking or not. The press and everything, the press and fans thought that if they would make an announcement on one driver, they would surely make an announcement. But if he's still under contract, then what's the point of him making an announcement? I guess everyone should be under the belief that he's staying if he's under contract. The problem with Button was that he had the option there that the team had to say yes to, or he had to say yes to. So perhaps, although we are just getting hyped up for no reason about Alonso, and we're just got to say that he's going to be there.
Yeah, until the next little fiasco takes place, and we'll assume at least for 2016 it'll take a lot to see Alonso on his way out for a second time from Woking, but really, yeah, Button's in now, and it seems like Alonso's there for 2016, so that's another real slot on the grid which has been closed down. So it really narrows down those options to the really the back markers.
But also, Button staying on with McLaren also indicates that he has a belief in the McLaren Honda project, that, you know, it may come together in the future, even though you look at this year, you think, oh, are they compromised for next season? There's a lot of sources. I know you brought this up yesterday evening, that there was one publication saying that, yeah, they've compromised their 2016 project as well.
Mark Hughes on the motorsport website, yeah, very skeptical about the chances of Mercedes making any kind of real, just minimal progression.
McLaren, you keep Mercedes.
McLaren,
yeah.
Mercedes have made there's not even much room to make any improvement, it must be said.
They will still make improvements anyway.
It's a frightening prospect, that.
But indeed, again, we heard on top of that Ron Dennis and Fernando Alonso, they share their frustrations again on the lack of testing they have. And, you know, I've been such an advocate for testing on the previous editions. Number one advocate. But yeah, Ron Dennis again saying that restrictions on testing do little to cut costs. He says, you know, if anything, teams are spending more money without testing.
Well, it's true. They've got to do all these hypothesizing and the wind tunnels.
And then and then the CFD as well, and also really practice sessions. You know, they go out on their practice sessions and risk a lot of risk. Do they bring new parts or not? And that's the only time they can test them. So it is a bit of a double-edged sword, that, because at the same time, sure, it may help the little teams cut costs, but the big teams who are itching to get back to the front and they want to test to do that, you know, you're going to create an even bigger gap between the big teams and the little teams. So, but still, testing is a very there should be a way to squeeze testing into the schedule as well, even if it means cutting a race or two from the calendar. We'll talk more about the calendar in a second, but yeah, what do you believe? Do you think maybe get rid of maybe one or two races on the calendar, open up, you know, a little gap, and allow testing to occur? And that the testing would happen straight after an event, mind you, so it's not going to be difficult in terms of logistics.
Oh, that'd be logical. Barcelona springs to mind, Silverstone, maybe even Germany, if it ever does end up back on the calendar. Some of those, like even Monza as well, if that remains on the calendar beyond next year, those logical post-European events where it's a timely juncture of the season, the campaign, where they'd want to make that evolution. And I did mention a few months ago as well the notion that perhaps the smaller outfits might be the ones afforded more or less these opportunities to test for a day or two, and perhaps, I don't know if there's some kind of a way to trade it in for some other form of development. I don't know whether it's that or they just compromise or cut a race from the calendar. It's already going to be at 21 next season.
21, and, so
and we don't know, I guess, if that'll be the final makeup of the calendar, but it's getting to the point now where there's a very precious little time between pre-season testing commencing, first race, until the end of November when we have the finale for any kind of in-season testing.
Indeed, but yeah, we'll move it on now. And another bit of big news was that Manor will switch to Mercedes-Benz power, and this was a prophecy that the village idiot, so-called Eddie Jordan, made, and here you go, it's come true. So the perennial back marker is set to get a boost with Mercedes-Benz power, and not just that, they're going to get suspension and gearbox from the Williams outfit as well. And Mercedes have ensured that they're going to get they're going to give full parity for Manor, so perhaps we're going to finally see them boosted up the order and in the points.
Yes, well, this year they were developing a chassis, of course, after their late start there, and it did have promising signs, but they ultimately decided not to proceed with that for this season. So if it's an evolution of the 2016 Challenger of this year's design, with the title-winning package, the PU, and a very handy Williams suspension package to accompany it, then I think really the chances are they'll be a regular points contenders and up there with we know all this talk about Haas instantly hitting the ground with their Ferrari power. They might both of them be instantly ahead of McLaren.
Indeed, and this may be a kick up Honda's backside if Manor become more competitive, then that will mean McLaren are the backmarkers. So the onus is really on them to get 2016 happening. And as we said before, some sources say that 2016 is already compromised for McLaren. Some say that they've already started preparing. They've got more focus on that instead of this season. So we'll wait and see. But at the same time, now that Mercedes-Benz have committed to Manor, there is no more room left for them to supply. And this really leaves the Enstone team, Lotus, without a contingency in case the Renault deal doesn't go ahead. That still hasn't been fully finalised and properly announced. And even Red Bull as well, they have no way of getting Mercedes-Benz power now.
Well, what's the situation for Mercedes meant to be? We'll just hang around till December 31st for an answer here. They've got to really commit and get all the supply, all the development in there for they're upstanding to the people who are paying them in Manor there. So it's not as though they're to blame here, really. Red Bull have made their own bed, and Enstone as well. I guess they've got their own issues.
Yeah, no, for sure. Mercedes have nothing. They've got their customers sorted, done and dusted. It's up to the others to get their own problems sorted. But yes, still no word on the Renault deal as well exactly, and it's really starting to become a bit grim if it's taking this long for them to sort everything out. And same for Red Bull as well. Still no word on a engine manufacturer, and you wonder if Ferrari are going to compromise. Are they going to reach some kind of even keel? But we'll wait and see.
Yeah, I think that's really all for now. It's just very much in limbo for several of these outfits at the moment, and that they need to address it pronto.
Exactly, and another thing we'll just brush over quickly, we don't want to talk too much about because we don't have a lot of information, but Bernie Ecclestone dropped a bit of a bombshell yesterday saying that F1 could be up for sale, CBC preparing to perhaps sell up at the end of the year. Of course, Bernie's no other source or anyone from inside CBC has confirmed this except for Bernie himself. Do we trust what the little man says, or
well, as you did allude to earlier with Joe Sayward, he's very canny the way that he addresses the fact that if Bernie wants something heard, he'll make it be heard, and he's the only possible source on these kind of suggestions, these rumours that individuals such as Stephen King, who is he the one who owns the Tampa Bay Dolphins?
Yeah, the RSC Ventures and the Qatari consortium as well.
We also have like Donald McKenzie, who's also the CBC front runner, Diddy Mateschitz, and then of course even rumours that Bernie himself would be keen to reacquire full autonomy of the sport.
But it's interesting what Joe Sayward did say, and it was that the problem is who out there can afford to buy out CBC shares, considering the price that CBC would put on them, and it wouldn't be cheap. It would probably be some ridiculous amount. So we'll have to wait and see what happens regarding this one. Surely there'll be a lot of chatter about it over the weekend in the Sochi paddock, but until we have anything concrete, we won't go too much on it. But we'll go straight to the calendar, the revised calendar for 2016, which was released last week by the World Motorsport Council. And the revised schedule now facilitates a midterm break between the 21 races. We'll see the start of the season on March 20, the original date that the Australian Grand Prix Corporation wanted for their season opener.
It's always been around that
March,
so partly as though this is a big surprise.
But instead of April 3, we're heading back into March, and then of course that means the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, the finale of the season, will be on November 27 instead of being pushed into December. And we've got a break between the German Grand Prix, July 31st, and the Belgian Grand Prix, August 28th.
It's also interesting too, we see Germany now as that final race prior to the break.
Instead of Hungary,
Traditional, really, curtain closer, I guess, for that off-season.
Mid-season break. But but the interesting thing we found on the calendar was the June 19 clash between the inaugural Azerbaijan race, the European Grand Prix, in inverted commas, and the prestigious Le Mans 24 hours. And the organisers so far have ensured that the F1 start time will be after the Le Mans race, just to make sure there's no clash. But
what good does this do for Nico Hülkenberg?
For Nico Hülkenberg, no chance of going and defending his Le Mans title next year. But yeah, 21 races, and as I was saying before, perhaps to open up a gap for testing in season, we need maybe cut one of those races. And obviously Azerbaijan, not very popular with the fans so far since its announcement. Everyone knows that it's just there for money-making purposes. Who knows if it's not a very popular race? Could it be cut off the calendar?
Oh, 20 races has a nice round, I guess, motion to it. So if it did come to pass one event was sacrificed, this would surely be the one, rather than say Germany again or Italy being,
or even the British Grand Prix, which is coming under real threat at the moment. But 21 races, we'll see. We've talked a lot about this, and we've said off air, on air as well, that now that the trigger has been pulled, we're going to see how the teams and the crews manage it next year. Even the media circus as well, how they're going to deal with it next year, flying to 20.
But got to be honest, there's been 21 races scheduled in the past, and it's either come down to 20 or 19.
Yeah, so we don't know. We don't know until then. But again, if 21 races was to happen next season, then it'll be a real test, and probably by then, that's when everyone will say, no, thank you, we don't want to do 21 races ever again because it's just too much. But yeah, the Malaysian race as well now moved down the calendar as a doubleheader with the Japanese Grand Prix, so that'll be on the October the 2nd, and the Sepang circuit is, as we detailed last week, is going to hold F1 and MotoGP events on consecutive weekends. So we'll have F1 on October the 2nd, and then the weekend after that we'll have the MotoGP Malaysian Grand Prix as well. Testing as well, 2 tests to happen at the Barcelona circuit. February 22 will be the first test, and the second and final test will occur on the 1st of March. And then, of course, 3 weeks later, we have the season opener in Melbourne. So seems like I don't know, what do we think of the calendar?
Oh, well, we can't please everyone, I guess, and it's always open to be altered down the track. But for now, this is what we have, and all the personnel individuals work around it in the meantime.
Yeah, pretty much so. But yeah, as you said, we may not see any. We may see some more changes later on down the track before the official calendar is published. And I know for the Australian Grand Prix, a lot of people who booked accommodation for the April 3 date are going to be scurrying to make changes and get it in for March 20. So that's the problem always with pre-calendars that are not fully, not the final version. There still can be changes. So yeah, we'll see what happens there. But we'll move it on now. The reason why we're here in New South Wales, our neighbouring state, if you'd like to say, is for the Australia's great race, the 2015 Bathurst 1000, and do a bit of a preview for you now. And yeah, one of the biggest races of the year in Australia, motorsport-wise. Of course, the Grand Prix is a pretty big event in itself, international. It's Formula One and attracts a lot of attention. But the Bathurst 1000 is something truly iconic in terms of Australian motorsport.
Oh, absolutely. It's up there with the Melbourne Cup and the AFL Grand Final and the Boxing Day Test, Sydney to Hobart. Really, it's one of those events that more or less the entire nation comes to a standstill at some point just to devour a bit of. Really, it's an enthralling contest from start to finish. Yeah,
and some certain drivers as well, such as Craig Lowndes, for example, who's a multiple winner of the 1000, says, winning a Bathurst race is bigger than winning a championship. So it means a lot to these drivers as well to get that ticked off. And who can forget, last year's unforgettable race, the race that we had last year. We talked a bit about this in our video that we were doing during the road trip as well. And I'm sure in the coming months we'll have it all edited and posted for you guys to see our little road trip movie we're doing. But yeah, it's such a big race. And last year, the guy who started last, Chaz Mostert, partnered by Paul Morris,
Dirty dangerous dude.
the dirty dangerous dude. They started last, didn't lead a lap all day except for the last 3 corners perhaps, and yeah, they won Australia's biggest race. So that just shows you how unpredictable things are. I mean, we thought of formulating a form guide to discuss for this podcast, but in the end we said not really. It's no point, because you're going to have guys who are quick, you're going to have your guys at the front of the grid, but at the same time, anything can happen. We saw so many front runners drop out of the race last year. Even before the race started, no Garth Tander, Warren Luff in the number 2 HRT Commodore. They were taken out during qualifying.
Well, as I mentioned on the camera yesterday, it's all about really preservation. Get through qualifying, regardless of whether you're at the front or somewhere perched at the rear. It's just getting onto that grid, and then the rest will take care of itself.
Yeah, keeping your head out of trouble, good strategy, good pit stops as well. Make sure all the stops are efficient. But yeah, apart from Tander, we had then David Reynolds dropping out of the race as well, who was in contention coming to the final phase of the race. We had Scott McLaughlin going into the wall at the cutting. Excellent pass from Shane Van Gisbergen on the inside of the cutting on McLaughlin, but McLaughlin unfortunately hitting the wall, and that was the end of the race for him. Then Van Gisbergen himself stalled in the pit lane, and that was such a heartache. And you can feel the emotion of the drivers, at those moments where they've been driving they've been in the car all day, they're so close to the end, but anything can just happen. And
it's almost part of the romantic notion. As much as it's heartbreak for these characters, that's just what makes Bathurst what it is. That every single year you go there's a hard luck story.
Yeah.
And you see all the hard work that maybe they've had already a compromised weekend, and they're on the verge of making it some kind of comeback, like David versus Goliath return, and then just at the last second the bomb goes off for them, and yeah, we get a new leader. It's really just what would Bathurst be without that kind of drama?
Exactly. And then we had Lowndes and Mark Winterbottom also in contention. Frosty going for back-to-back titles at Bathurst, but both were involved in an altercation where the former spun the latter around, or whatever way you want to take it. It was a pretty I don't even recall the moment in my head who exactly was to fault for it, but yeah, it put both of them out of contention, sadly. As much as we wanted to see Lounsey back up there and win a title at Bathurst, it put those two out, and then ultimately at the end we just had Jamie Whincup, the reigning series champion, versus Chaz Mostert, and these two guys were the guys who started at the back of the grid as well.
And so another factor we do have to consider amongst all of these, we're going to see that iconic pairing as a result of James Courtney being unable to take his place. Russell Ingall gets another bite at the cherry. He gets to come back to Bathurst alongside Jack Perkins for HRT, and who knows what a great story that would be if somehow they can get it right on the day.
The Ingall-Perkins combination.
Sign off with a victory or even a podium. That'd be a great way for him to bow out.
Exactly, and I don't think we've discussed this, but yeah, HRT running some special liveries this weekend on both their cars. Garth Tander's number 2 will be sporting the Dark Side livery for the new Star Wars film, and the number 22 Ingall-Perkins car will be sporting the light side, and our favourite character Chewbacca's on it as well. So yeah, our pretty pathetic impersonations, but anywho, so special liveries there for them, and another special livery, the Wendy's ice cream livery for the Erebus car.
It's a hot little colour, that one.
Yeah, the pink and the cream as well on the number 4 car, so very interesting. But then also we got the 2 wild cards as well in the Novocastrian Russell Brothers entry. It's a Commodore that's been loaned by Gary Rogers Motorsport, and then of course the Harvey Norman Supergirls being run out of the Pro Drive stable for
and we did see as well, there's a particular skeptic in none other than Dick Johnson, who's of the opinion that they'll be lucky to even make it to the finish line, let alone compete for a top 10 spot. Very hard.
Very hard.
Quite esteemed drivers there.
Yeah, I guess Simona Di Silvestro comes with a lot of credentials with her performances in IndyCar for many years, Formula E as well now. Sauber, she was an affiliated driver with Sauber as well. But yeah, you know, this is the first time she's stepped into a closed cockpit car, or well, you know, touring car or whatever for a while. I don't know if she's ever done touring cars before, but it should be interesting to see what happens. And they've probably got one of the best chassis on the grid anyway in that Falcon FGX. So, you know, with a competitive car, you know, surely they will be on for a good result. And as we said before, it comes down to keeping your head out of trouble, strategy, and good strategy. And yeah, who knows where they could be.
Yeah, as long as they keep their noses clean, I think then really there's every chance they'll be contending for a top 10 spot at the end of the day.
Exactly. So we're really looking forward to seeing how everything unfolds. And of course, today's Thursday. We'll have the practice sessions underway from the mountain. We won't be venturing trackside until Saturday morning. See all the final practice proceedings, and also qualifying in that all-important top 10 shootout, when the top 10 drivers, they have a lap of the mountain to themselves, no one else on the circuit. It's just them, the fans roaring around the circuit. You have those guys at the top of the mountain throwing cans of Foster's or VB or whatever 4X Gold that they have, just throwing them at the track. So yeah, really looking forward to it.
Yeah, really, we're in Sydney now, so we're much closer to the goal, but it won't sink in truly till we grace the hallowed turf of Mount Panorama.
Exactly, and we've been to some. You know, we've been to some prestigious events. You've been to Silverstone, obviously, the British Grand Prix. I've been to many Australian Grand Prix. We've done Sandown. I went to Winton this year for V8s again. Been overseas for Abu Dhabi, but Bathurst really is one of those iconic. It's one of those dual circuits in the Crown. A lot of drivers, you know, internationally have a lot of praise for this circuit, and it's not, you know. The comparisons have been drawn with Spa because of the undulations and everything, but the thing about Bathurst is there's no runoffs, there's no, you know, forgiving areas at the top of the mountain. So yeah, it's very difficult. It's a very difficult circuit to navigate, but yeah, we won't know until we see it for sure in its grandeur.
Yeah, and with the extended forecast, there's been a bit of a thought that it could be a few showers on the Saturday and possibly a few thunderstorms on the Sunday, I believe. So that's really going to spice up proceedings a fair bit there, and as if it isn't already treacherous enough around the mountain there. How many kilometres is it in all? It's 6-7 kilometres in total.
Yeah, 6 kilometres, I think.
Yes, it is. 2 minutes 05. Rumours that they might break that record at long last with the upgrades, I guess, they've made this year, the innovations with the current chassis. But in the meantime, yeah, it really does promise to be quite an open race. Obviously, ProDrive there, they've been the team to beat this season, but we did see Triple Eight at Sandown. Very unfortunate to really be put down the pack with that tyre issue mid-race for Jamie Whincup and Paul Dumbrell, and of course Craig Lowndes as well. He always seems to be on the money around here, so that they cannot be ruled out.
Exactly. So, it's anyone's race really, and we saw what happened to Whincup there, and it wasn't his fault. He was driving a faultless race, and we all thought that he would win. But that's endurance racing for you, whether it's in V8s or the World Endurance Championship. It's yeah, that's the way it is. But other than that, I think we've pretty much covered what we want to today. And of course, we'll be back with the Russian Grand Prix coverage over the weekend. But until then, you know, thank you for joining us. Sorry about the slight delay, but
maybe you could forgive us. We did a good job on the road there. And yeah, the final product is that instead of being half-baked yesterday evening, we're fresh as a daisy this morning. And for all of you international listeners, you can enjoy it on your commute in Thursday morning, or even return home Thursday evening.
Indeed. So thank you for joining us today. I'm Jawad, as always, Baden with me, and we'll see you guys later.